Welcome back to Mom's Time Out podcast. I'm your host, Heather. And before you forget, because I know that you have a million tabs open in your brain, and if you don't do it right now, you're going to forget. So, right now, make sure that you go follow me on my socials if you're not already, and subscribe to the Mom's Time Out podcast on my YouTube channel or follow on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you're here, I know that you have so much on your plate. Whether you are up all night with a newborn, you're chasing a toddler or multiple toddlers, or helping your school age kids with homework, or trying to keep things together with your grown kids, you are doing it all. And I see you. This space is for every mom, no matter where you are on this wild ride of motherhood. We're keeping it real here, no sugarcoating, just straight up honest talk. If you've been watching my channel on YouTube, then you can see I have a slightly different setup. I'm still in the same place, but I've moved the camera much further back away from my face, and you just get a better view of my setup here, and I can just sit more comfortably and relaxed in the space rather than like right on top of the camera in front of my desk. I'm just tweaking things as I go, as I'm learning more about sound quality and lighting and all kinds of different things. I am the kind of person that loves a process, and I do love to learn as I go. I am not one to get all the things in line and do all the research and feel like I just have it perfectly laid out before I start. I like to start with the minimum of what I need and just get it going, because I just get too excited. Like, as soon as I have a thought about something, like that fire is lit and I just have to use that as my momentum, and it just drives me forward. So this is my creative outlet in my life outside of being a mother, and I just really enjoy this learning experience. I've definitely appreciated more now than definitely when I started out, just the messiness of motherhood and accepting that in other things as well. Just being messy, even being okay with being messy when you start. Like, it's going to get worse before it gets better sometimes, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. But I am perfectly okay with showing up here as I am, even if it's a little bit messy, because that's what motherhood is. And I want to show that for you and normalize that, because if we can accept that in motherhood, we can take that into other areas of our life and use it as a means to improve. So thank you for being on this journey with me as we dive into this new adventure, mess and all. All right, so in today's episode, we are diving into something every mom has felt, but maybe hasn't had the words to describe it: the mental load of motherhood. You feel me? You know, that constant invisible to-do list running in your brain 24/7, the decision fatigue, the emotional responsibility, and why you're absolutely exhausted when you haven't even moved from the couch, the bed, or a chair. I will break down exactly why the mental load is so overwhelming, why we struggle to ask for help. Hello. And most importantly, how to start letting go of the pressure to do it all. Is it possible? Because let's be real, if we don't talk about this, we are all just walking around one forgotten project away from a full-blown meltdown. But wait, there's more, because I recently asked on TikTok, what is something you wish you had known about motherhood before becoming a mom? Remember your pre-kid self? And let me tell you, the comments were gold. Some were hilarious, some were brutally honest, and some hit so deep I just had to sit for a minute with. So after we tackled the mental load, I'll be sharing some of those incredible responses, because trust me, you're not alone in this. Stick around. This is going to be a good one. You know, I think that there's a direct correlation between the number of kids you have, the number of years you've been a mom, and the amount of memory loss that you suffer. Like, I'm pretty sure with every child, I've lost at least 10% of my brain's ability to retain information. How about you? It's probably even higher than 10%. I'm being too nice. And my kids, being the completely self-involved age that they are right now, cannot even comprehend why I forget things so easily. They'll tell me something that they need, and I'm like, okay, I got it. And within minutes, probably seconds, it is gone, disappeared, poof. My brain has already moved on to the next task, and whatever they told me just literally vanished into thin air. I'm not alone, right? Meanwhile, you know what my current worst memory struggle is? Oh my gosh, setting my phone down and walking away. And then I have zero recollection of where I put it. Like, am I okay? And why haven't I put a tracking device on it yet? It drives me nuts how much I forget where I set it down. And of course, my kids don't even get it. They're out here remembering every minor detail of some YouTube video they watched 6 months ago. But they cannot fathom why I can't remember their school project deadline, plus my own schedule, plus everything else going on in our lives. Sure, I can write things down. I can make notes and I can set reminders. But at some point, there is just too much coming in and not enough room to store it all. And that, my mom friends, is the mental load of motherhood. It's why we feel like we're drowning in invisible responsibilities. And today, we're going to break it all down. So, what is the mental load of motherhood? It's not just what you do, it's what you think about constantly. It's the who, it's the what, where, when, why, how, every single person, pet, and plan in your household. Remembering your kid's favorite snack that they'll suddenly hate next week. Knowing which kid is due for a dentist appointment before the reminder even hits your inbox. Pre-planning tomorrow's meltdown because you know someone is going to lose their mind over something. The mental load is invisible, it is relentless, and it is exhausting. Unlike the physical tasks like laundry, dishes, packing lunches, that mental load, it never stops. Even when you're resting, like trying to sleep, your brain is still working. So why is it so exhausting? Well, because it's a never-ending checklist running in your head on repeat. So with that comes decision fatigue. Every choice, from what's for dinner to whether your kid should wear a jacket, falls on you, us. There's invisible labor. No one sees it. Oh, but they sure notice when you forget something. How about emotional responsibility? Managing everyone's mood, their emotions, and meltdowns while pretending, I'm not pretending, that you are totally fine. And you're never off duty. Even when you finally sit down, your brain is still running through tomorrow's to-do list. So yeah, even when you feel worn down to your soul, it's because you've been doing 10,000 micro tasks all day in your head. If only we could consider that a workout. Am I right? So why do we struggle to ask for help? Big one. I can ask myself that. Heather, why do you struggle to ask for help? Well, these should be fun because we are conditioned to believe, well, if I don't do it, it won't get done. If I had $1 for every time that I have said that, how many dollars would you have? If someone else does it, they'll just do it wrong. Also, I would be a millionaire if I had $1 for every time I said that. Where are my fellow type A personalities? And last but not least, well, I just don't want to be a burden. Yeah, said that one a lot too. And even though we are drowning, barely head above water, gasping for breath, we have convinced ourselves that we don't have it that bad because someone else has it worse. But burnout isn't a competition. Just because another mom might have more on her plate, it doesn't mean that your plate isn't overflowing. Yeah, Heather, you too. Look, I definitely can't promise you that your brain will ever fully shut off. We'll save that for when we're 6 feet under, okay? We want our brain to be on, obviously. But here's how to make it a little more manageable. Number one, delegate. Now, again, type A personality here. I know it's hard. And sometimes it's not an option if you don't have other people to delegate to. But for those that do have that option, delegate. Now, keep in mind, to delegate means to let go of control. Oh, that is so hard. You want me to do what now? Okay, they might not do it your way, but done is better than perfect, I guess. I'm just being real here. But seriously, sometimes done really is better than perfect, and you just have to let it be. Number two is to set boundaries. Stop saying yes to everything and normalize saying no without guilt. Now, this one, I can 100% attest to how powerful saying no is. I have no problem saying no. In fact, I've been flaky my whole life, and I never understood it when I was younger, and I used to feel bad because other people would call me flaky. But now, being older and more self aware, I get why I was doing that. And as an adult, I don't mind saying no. If I don't want to be somewhere, I don't go. If I don't feel comfortable, I don't go. And I don't even necessarily have to have an excuse or plans. It can just be a no. No is a full statement. You don't have to say, no, I have this and this. They don't need to know your business. Just say no. And it could be just because you don't want to go. The end. Number three is let go of the invisible race. Who are you competing with? That pressure that you're feeling, that's self inflicted, right? Your competition is yourself. If you have other people that you feel like you're competing against, that's in your own head. That's self sabotage. And we're not about that life. Now, I know that's easier said than done. I'm not here to bash you and tell you how to live your life, but the truth is, you are in competition with no one. And we do tend to put so much pressure on ourselves because we feel like we're competing against something or someone else, when really we're not. We're just stressed and overwhelmed. And my fourth thing is to ground yourself when you feel overwhelmed. Take a pause, take a breath, step away, because your worth is not measured by your productivity. So go outside, touch some grass. That's not just a saying. Literally, go outside, take your shoes off, take your socks off if it's not too cold or the ground isn't too crazy. Put your feet in some grass. Ground yourself in there. Take some deep breaths of some fresh air and bring yourself back to reality. Okay, so now I want to talk about some responses I got from the TikTok post that I made on my TikTok platform, which if you want to find me on TikTok, you can find me at Mom's Time Out Pod. I am there. So in my post, I asked, what are some things that you wish you had known about motherhood, right? Because here I am, 12 years in, almost 13 years in now with 3 kids, and I am constantly reflecting on this journey and what I wish I would have known prior to coming into this. I'm not sure though that it would have helped me because we just don't know what we don't know yet. And it really takes just diving headfirst into that experience and being hands on in it with your own child and the emotional attachment that you have to fully grasp what you're experiencing. Because I feel like people could have told me these things, maybe made me a little aware, but I feel like they would have just been words coming at me, and I probably been like, okay, and I probably would have just made my own version of it in my head. Surely it's not that bad. But it is, in fact. that bad. And you just don't fully believe it. You just can't because you haven't been there yet. You don't fully believe it until you're in the thick of it and you're like, holy shit, what did I get myself into? Okay, so let's get to what we should actually be talking about here. So I'm going to give you some responses that other people said. This is from Sam. She said, how it never ends. Doesn't matter whether you're with them or not. You are thinking about them 24/7. The mental load is real, and the constant overstimulation was not prepared for that. And then she adds to it and says, oh, and how you feel guilty literally all the time. Or maybe that's just me. No, girl, that's not just you. I think that's every mom. So let's unpack that for a quick second. I feel like we've talked about some of those in my episodes with the mental load we just talked about today, and then we've spoken about guilt a little bit as well. And like we just said, the mental load really is real. It is a lot. It's 24/7. It never ends. And as women, our brain was made to hold all this information and have 27 tabs going all at once. And we just figuratively click them to get different information all day, right? In comparison to like men, their brain was made to just have like one thought at a time. What the fuck is that? They have no idea what we are going through, and we have no idea what it's like to just have one thought. I wish my brain could be that quiet. Okay, it's not even quiet when it sleeps. Am I right? And then there's the guilt. I have definitely been better about feeling guilty now that my kids are older. But when they were younger, there was definitely a lot more guilt with them being younger and being away from them. But it's completely valid and it's normal. It is part of being a mom, and it means that we're being a good mom. The fact that we care, the fact that we feel guilty, right? Another friend at Swifty Cat Mom said, I wish I had known how often I would have to pick my battles. Yeah, that's a good one. And if I could give advice to any mom, any new mom, whether you're just starting out or you're about to start your journey as a mom, one of them would definitely be you have to learn how to pick your battles because you cannot fight them all. We have too many. You are one person and you just can't win them all and you can't make them all perfect. So choose the biggest ones or whatever is the most important to you and tackle that one. Another friend at Carly J, the crafty mama, said, I wish I knew how lonely it was. It feels impossible to make mom friends. All the mom meetup groups are designed for stay at home moms, and nobody talks to each other at library story hour. It's just hard. Gosh. And I plan on making an episode just about that, making mom friends. I've talked a little bit about the loneliness before, but of course, that'll always be a topic at the front of the line. But making mom friends is so hard as a mom. And not only making mom friends, but keeping mom friends for the longevity because it's wild to me how different we become. Everyone had an idea of how they would be, but the idea we have and who we actually become are two totally different things. So, seeing your friend change, yourself is changing, you're freaking out about the changes in yourself, your friend is changing through this, and you're watching their emotions, and there's judgment there, of course. And it's just a wild time. There's so much that changes when you have a baby. I mean, literally every aspect of your life changes. And so to see your friends' dynamic change as well just makes it feel so lonely because not only with that, and even if you have a good dynamic, even if you have good friendships, the time you get with them is also so limited. And even if you do get time, it's getting to have a full conversation. Like, what is that? So, that topic alone is going to be its whole episode because that is definitely something that I have a personal experience with and want to speak on and want to get other people's take and really just help building a community of moms, even if it's on the internet, to be able to engage with each other and support each other, encourage each other, and ask questions. Because unfortunately it is hard to make friends in real life. My kids are getting older now and it's still hard. No matter what, everyone is busy. Everyone has different schedules. They have kids activities, and the time you do have to yourself doesn't necessarily match up to someone else's schedule, and it's hard. It's not completely impossible. It takes some effort, and sometimes that in itself is just like, yeah, I'm good. I'll just stay home. If you're an introvert like me. Another friend at Stephanie Smith, health coach, said, I wish I would have held them more and not taken the grandparents' advice about letting them cry it out. I wish I knew that I could draw boundaries with the grandparents. I wish I had known about PPD. So many things there to unpack. I personally didn't have to deal with grandparent advice too much. I did have my in laws. My own parents had already passed away, and I did have my in laws at the time, and they were very helpful, very supportive. My mother in law had some few opinions of her own, but I mean, it wasn't anything terrible. But I know that those situations are out there where the grandparents get a little too vocal, a little too involved, and can really confuse you and how you want to show up as a mom or what you should do for your child. Because when you become a mom, you don't know what you're doing. So at the time, like, you want other people's advice because you don't know any different. And then you're also conflicted on, is this the right thing to do? And sometimes it's not till after the fact that you realize, like, dang, I should have done it differently, or I should have just done it the way I thought. I should have trusted my gut and just did it my way. But in those times, we're feeling insecure. And so, of course, we're going to take like the easiest option, even if it isn't the best choice that we want to do. When it comes to crying out, that one is hard. And that is a debate among so many parents, and to each their own. There's parents who wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. There's parents who are all for it, and there's parents somewhere in between. Like, maybe they try it, it didn't work, and then they're like, nope, we're just gonna not do any sort of cry it out method, self-soothing. I have I've done both. Okay. In the beginning, I did a little bit of self-soothing. My first child, she took to it pretty well, honestly. My second child, I tried that with, and she was like, fuck you. No, what are you doing? And she ended up just co-sleeping with me because she was my nursing baby. She came out of the womb, literally attached herself, found my boob, and refused to let go. Like, she was like, this is the good stuff. She's a Taurus, so she's all about food, the good stuff. And so she was like, yeah, I'm not leaving here. So what the fuck are you doing making me cry? Like, I'm hungry. What are you doing? And I was against having kids sleep in my bed. My first girl didn't sleep with me, and I didn't want that. I wanted to sleep, right? I wanted my kids to sleep in their own bed as soon as they could. And again, my second child, she was very much the humbling one for me. And anything I thought I was going to do with her, she had a whole other plan. I learned very quickly that I was no longer in control of my life, apparently. She was running it. And sometimes she still is, unfortunately. But I couldn't let her cry it out. And so I did try, and I had to give up and give in, just accept that that was going to be my fate. And it was really hard. I didn't love it, but it was what it was. And at 15 months, I literally kicked her off. Said, we're done. But to each their own with that method. It is really hard. It's not for the weak. And honestly, I think it's more up to the child. Like I said, some babies are okay with it, and then some babies are like, no. So depends on how determined and persistent you can be and how strong-minded you are to be persistent with it. And if you're not, then that's okay too. Like, babies aren't really meant to cry it out. It's okay to comfort them when they are that little. They're tiny, they don't know what's going on, and they need to be comforted. And so again, to each their own on that part. But I do agree. I could have done it differently too, and not use the cry out method at all. Another friend on TikTok at Rachel Sloan, she said, I wish I knew how important it would be to take care of me. Also, I wish I had known that the minute you get out of one phase, you think you know your kid. You're in another phase to learn. Ugh, oh my goodness. Taking care of me. Okay. This is why I have this podcast. This is why I became a wellness coach, to serve other busy moms because I also had to learn the hard way of what it's like when you don't take care of yourself. It just times were different 12, 13 years ago. We didn't have TikTok and social media the way that we do now. We did have Facebook and we had Pinterest and Instagram, but they were just completely different. We just didn't get to see enough real life, raw, authentic people on the internet. People were still being fake, and we're just seeing small glimpses and thinking that, like, oh my God, their life just looks so amazing. We weren't getting that, like, raw authenticness that some social media platforms can give you now. So I was struggling hardcore. I definitely had postpartum. I was definitely depressed. And there was just so much going on mentally and emotionally. And I was trying to take care of myself to some degree, but it was hard. And I didn't have anybody there coaching me through that. So it was very easy to constantly give up on that and, just focus on the kids because that's what you know how to do. And they need your attention. You can't not focus on them. But I definitely did not know how to balance the two. So I agree. That is definitely something I wish I would have known. I wish there would have been someone there to coach me through that, and there wasn't. So here I am now showing up for other people to coach you, to support you, to encourage you to take care of you while the kids are young, even while the kids are young. Don't wait until they're out of the house and then you're like lost and confused and then having to overcompensate for what you didn't do in those 18 years. The other thing she said, once you get into one phase with your kid, there you go, that phase is done, and then on to the next. And I would say, like, that first year is the wildest ride of that, right? Because so much happens in that first year. Literally month to month, they're in a new phase, okay? Like, they just change so much in the year. And then after that, they're continuing to change so much. So you've got the newborn, baby phase, and then you're done with that, and now you're into the toddler phase, and that's a whole nother experience in itself. And then you survived newborn and toddler phase, and now you're in school age, and again, that is a whole other phase in itself. And that's where I am still, but I know beyond that, as grown kids, that is its own story. So it is just it's a wild freaking ride. Another friend on TikTok at Erin J. Hosmer, she said, I wish I had known how overstimulating it is. And we talked about being touched out. And man, like pre-kids me was totally fine with physical touch, physical affection. I had no problem with it, right? None at all. I had my cats, I loved them. And I specifically remember before I had my first child, I had one of my cats, he's passed away, but he was just my sweet, loving boy cat. And I remember telling him, I think like the night before I went into the hospital or somewhere around near there, like, don't worry, I'm going to have plenty of love for you and this baby. Like, don't worry. And man, I basically lied because I definitely was like, I didn't have as much time for him. My desire for him definitely fell off, like I was just holding a baby all day. I need my space. I need that time to recharge. And it's definitely not that I don't appreciate my baby whenever I hold her and I love all the hugs and whatnot. I appreciated every ounce of that, but it's a lot. It's a lot when especially when they're newborn and toddler and they're super needy. They need you. And so it can just feel like a very overstimulating experience. You're like, oh my God, just everybody get off me. Everybody get off me. Don't breathe near me. You just want to go lock yourself up in the bathroom or the closet or somewhere for like 5 minutes just to regroup and feel like a human again. Okay, another friend said at Ashley Snar, I wish someone had walked me through what it actually means to breastfeed a baby. The time commitment and frequency took me the fuck out. Oh, Lord, it is a lot. It is a lot. And I had good nurses in the hospital that I was with, and they really walked me through the whole thing. So I'm thankful for that. But it is a process in itself, especially if you're pumping. That is that'll suck the life right out of you, literally. I didn't pump too much. I ended up exclusively breastfeeding with my second child, the only one that ended up wanting to nurse. So I didn't have to use a pump too much with any of the other kids, but my experience with them and the time that I had, I just hated them. And I know that there's moms that exclusively pump. And even if they like doing it, they still will admit like what a labor of love it is. Like it's just time consuming and just it makes you feel lonely and isolated and you're just a milking cow. All that's still a very hard journey. That's definitely something that is helpful to know going into having a child. Whether you know you're going to nurse or not, still solid information to know beforehand. Another friend, Mary Beth Montessa, she said, how much more would be expected of me than my partner? How isolating it is when you're the first in the friend group with kids. And this one, maybe we've talked about it in a previous episode, I can't remember, but what society puts pressure on when it comes to the woman's obligations versus the man's obligations, the mom and the dad, is just, it's gross, right? I mean, yes, we carried them, we birthed them, but we co-created this human being, okay? I didn't ask to have the reproductive organs to carry this child and birth this child. But, you know, but the man should have to equally make up for that part of it. The women, the moms are really, we're in this obligation to be the main caregiver and to know all the things, like know how to raise this child. I didn't know what I was doing. I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But there's always this expectation that we should know how to do that because we have always been around other women, I guess. I don't know. The math doesn't math for sure. But I definitely agree with that question. You know, how much more would be expected of me than my partner? And then she said how isolating it is when you're the first in the friend group. Now, I had the opposite experience. I was the last mom in my friend group to have a kid. So I can't speak on being the first, but I can imagine the opposite end of what I felt, how it is isolating because you're the very first one. So you don't have anyone else to share your problems with because everyone else is like, I don't know what you're feeling. They can be there and be morally supportive, but they can't be fully empathetic with you because they don't know what you're going through yet. And it's not their fault, but it's still a hard thing to deal with, I'm sure, like being alone in that. And then I was on the opposite end. I was one of the last ones to have a child. I was lucky to already have a group of friends that had some experience and I could lean on and I could watch. I had watched them through their first child and things that they were going through, and at least had a little bit of a better idea of what I was getting into. But obviously, it is completely different when you have your own child with its own personality and its own boss level of changing your life. So thank you to my TikTok friends for sharing your responses. I appreciate that. And this is what this podcast community is for, to share our experiences and normalize the hard things about motherhood, to speak the truths, to speak the quiet parts out loud and just normalize that this shit is really hard. We can love our children immensely to infinity and beyond, but we can also not love motherhood, its responsibilities, its mental load, its emotional load, the physical labor, all of it. We don't have to like those parts, but we can still love our children. We can have both. So don't let someone tell you that you are a bad mom for not enjoying motherhood and that you should appreciate it. Yeah, we should appreciate it, Karen. We get that, okay? But we can also have a hard time and throw an adult tantrum and be mad and angry and all the things because this shit is hard. We'll process our feelings. We'll be okay. We're still going to show up because that's who we fucking are. Someone's got to do it. And we are going to do it. But we can still have our feelings. All right, moms, if you've been feeling completely worn out, forgetful, and mentally overloaded, just know you are normal and you are not alone. That constant running to-do list in your head, it is real. It's exhausting and it is not a personal failure. It is just a lot. So today, I want you to give yourself some grace. The mental load isn't something you just magically fix overnight, but you can start lightening the weight just a little at a time. And if you're taking nothing else from this episode, remember this: you don't have to carry it all the time, alone. All right, mom friends, I hope this episode has made you feel a little less alone. Motherhood can be so overwhelming, but also beautiful, hard, and messy all at once. And that, ironically, is normal. Wherever you are in your mom journey, I just want you to know that you're doing great. Keep going, keep showing up, and keep being real. If this episode resonated with you, be sure to send it to another mom who needs to hear this. And be sure to subscribe to this channel so you never miss an episode. Let's normalize talking about the hard stuff, because pretending we have it all together, well, that's exhausting too. I'll be here next time on Mom's Time Out podcast. And until then, take care of yourself in the mess. And remember, you are not alone. We got this.